Thanks for joining us for another For Investors by Investors Long Beach podcast. As always, we're proud to be your all-education real estate resource without any kind of sales pitch. If you'd like to attend one of our meetings in person, we meet on the last Thursday of the month at the Grand in Long Beach, California. You can RSVP on forinvestorsbyinvestors.com/Long Beach. To find more investment resources such as blogs and podcasts and content from other FIBI groups, you can go to forinvestorsbyinvestors.com and search our entire library. Now, on to the podcast.
I'm a broker. I'm an investor. I manage New Western Acquisitions. And what we do is we acquire distressed properties, single family mainly, some small multifamily, but pretty much anywhere in the greater Los Angeles area. So we're doing about 25 to 30 deals a month. And we have an acquisition team that's on the ground that are doing the things that you guys might not want to do. Sitting down in Compton, negotiating with a divorced couple on how we can figure out, come to terms on a sale, or dealing with the probate attorneys, or, going to these court hearings, doing a lot of stuff that most of you guys don't have the time to do, and it's understandable, and like he said, never quitting. Because this is a very discouraging industry. Most people do quit, right? I mean, it's tough. When I first moved to California about 4.5 years ago from Houston, Texas, thank God I did, right? But anyways, I didn't even make a single dollar for about 7 months, and there was every morning I thought about quitting, but thank goodness I didn't, because now we're coming off our biggest month ever, closed 31 deals last month for $650,000 in volume. So that's wholesale, but literally 8 months of nothing. And I wanted to quit, it was tough. But your first year is always the toughest. You have to do the things that, because you're not going to make really any money. It's hard to wake up motivated when you know that you're not going to make any money, So that's pretty much what we do. Our acquisition teams are incredible. I love them. We got 25 agents that work every avenue that there is to buy deals. So how many flippers do we have in here? Like actively flipping right now? Yeah, Southern California or remotely?
Southern California.
Both? Yeah. Okay. So, how many offers are you typically having to make if it's an MLS deal? Our acquisition agents are doing 15, 20 offers a week to maybe get one accepted. You guys are probably feeling that pain, right? I'm assuming. It's pretty tough, So they're doing the legwork for the investors who can't really do that. And that's what we do. So that's pretty much it. Yeah. So if you guys have any questions, I'd love to help you out. If you guys need another avenue for deals, come talk to me. And thanks, Matt. We appreciate it.
I didn't get to eat my cookie, so I need my sugar rush right now. So, the best drug we all love, sugar. So, that being said, thank you very much. He actually has been doing a ton and actually helped me just recently with a couple of tidbits of knowledge on the marketing piece, some different tools and technology that's coming out. And that's what's really cool about flipping properties and finding deals, is there's new technology coming out constantly that's going to be able to help you to find more deals, to be more efficient, to cut costs, and really to be able to help the real estate investor in every industry. And so you have to be able to be really, really good at what you do and be at the top of your game and constantly be looking for these new ways of making more money and decreasing your time per deal. So that being said, I'm going to bring up the speakers. Guys, Christy, come on up. I think that's Christy's seat. She's saved it for herself. So. And I gave you guys one mic.
It makes sense.
Sorry, we had 3 mics total. So.
We talk over each other, so
yeah, it's okay. It's no problem. We have the Facebook Live going, so that way, and as long as it doesn't cut off again, like it does sometimes, of course. So I brought up this group of panelists, Stephen, Todd, and Christy, up here because they're all professionals in what they do. They've been doing this for a long time. They have a great knowledge base, of different actual strategies that they deployed over their career. So, and I have a list of questions, which is actually in my bag in the back, if someone can help me out with that real quick. Thanks. It's in my folder. Thanks. Basically, we're going to go over some of those questions. I'm a full-time investor. These guys are full-time investors. And, she has the questions. That's great. So I'm stealing it from you right now. That's perfect. Yeah. This is basically just to kind of keep things going in the room. And I want to keep this very much a Q&A. So I want you guys to be asking as many questions as you can, trying to find out as much information as you can so to help your career move forward in real estate and help you do flipping or lending or whatever it is you do that's related to flipping properties. So that being said, Steve, I'm going to have you start off, and I'm going to put you on blast first. And look at these guys, sandals and shorts. I mean, I know it's hot, but I decided to sweat here instead, in a black shirt and pants. These guys were smart. I'm mad. I'm mad because you guys were smart enough to.
It's actually literally our brand.
Say it again?
It's literally our brand.
Is it really your brand?
Yeah, no, so we used to do a radio show called the Flip Flop Investors, and Todd does it now because I got bored of it. But I did the interviews at the media, and Todd does them at on the radio show.
Nice. That's awesome.
So I'm basically supposed to explain why you should listen to me, right? That's my job?
Yeah, there you go.
The Reader's Digest version, I grew up always following weird sales stuff, multi-level marketing at 19, the cars and stuff attracted me to the business. And then after failing miserably and being sued out of existence in multi-level marketing because we were poaching people from other people's multi-level marketing companies, I, at 19, had somebody suggested I go get this really easy job at a title company where I just deliver documents and I can sleep the other half of the day. So it was really cool. I could go out, party with my friends, burn all my gas money, the company reimbursed me on my partying, and then sleep at lunch and then deliver documents. But I met all these high-profile investors because that's who I was delivering documents to, which is kind of an odd circumstance. After a while, I noticed people in the business that were flipping property, come in the office every day, ask them questions, so on and so on. Talked about my first deal in 2005. Genius, right? It's the best time to buy.
Perfect, yeah.
Made a ton of money, which was even worse because now I'm a bona fide genius. And then proceeded to go down in flames with several other deals I bought all at the same time right afterwards, to the tune of $1.5 million. Todd and I were both working sort of side by side. We'd worked together on projects, but semi-unrelated for years. And then Todd started a hard money company. He sucked me into it when I wanted to quit. And now I don't know. I mean, I don't want to speak for both of us since we're supposed to be doing something, but we're doing 20 deals at a time, flipping property. We run the Inland Empire Real Estate Investment Club, which has 3,000 members. That's 150 people at a meeting. And I don't know, we just keep buying stuff. We're building, we hired a developer team, so we're building a lot of technology too.
How can they find the club online for that?
Meetup.com, Inland Empire Real Estate Investment Club, or IEREIC.org. You can find the club information. It's now in condition anymore.
Tongue twister right there. Say it again.
IE, Inland Empire Real Estate Investment Club. Nobody from out here will come out there because it's 4 hours going that way and 45 minutes coming this way.
All right, I'm Todd Bayer. I got my start in real estate because my mom was an appraiser. So I was selling financial products out here, actually, out in Newport Beach, and was terrible at it. So at that time, this is in 2005, my mom's telling me how crazy the appraisal business is getting and how she's getting so many appraisal orders every single week that she's turning away 7 a week. And at $350 a pop, that's pretty good money. So I asked my mom, well, what do you think? Can I come out and help you run the office? Keep the printer stocked with toner and, make sure there's paper on deck and all that stuff. So, she said, okay, cool. I was like, I just need $2,500 a month, Mom. I was worried she was going to say no. But, so she agreed to do it. And we went out. She'd been an appraiser for 35 years at that point, and had been an appraisal institute president at one point. So she was a very well-known appraiser out in the Inland Empire. A lot of people knew her. So I was always Beverly's son. It was kind of for a long time, that's who I was. So I had to make my way after a while. But we got started in 2006 is when we bought our first flip, which was a success. We made some good money on it. But we weren't good at finding deals, so fortunately we didn't carry any through the recession. So we weren't good at finding them at that time. So then we started buying rentals in 2007 because out in the Inland Empire, prices crashed so fast that we were able to just jump in and start buying stuff and immediately making cash flow. We were making 8% cap rates, no problem. And starting in 07, actually, the end of 07. So we did that for a while. and then got into some projects where didn't have any. I ran out of money. I was borrowing money from some hard money lenders and ran out of money and had to get another hard money lender to bail me out of one of our projects. And that's how I met my first partner who had a bunch of cash. He had a lot of money and wanted to basically flip, keep doing the same thing we were doing. And then he wanted to get into hard money lending. So we got into lending, started a company called Macmillan Capital, which I don't see John here, but they're based out of Orange now. I quit that company in 2013 and started Rehab Loan Group, which was our hard money lending company, for a little bit, and did that. But all the while, I was still doing about 2 flips a year, during that time too. And then we got to the point where we just hated lending in June of last year and said, you know what, let's just go back to flipping full time. This is so annoying. We hated being a service provider lender. So this is also a lifestyle business for us. We like the idea of not killing ourselves for a very small amount of money that you make as a lender. So we switched gears last year in June and started doing joint ventures with people and started doing flips of our own. And since then, we've been loving it. And yeah, it's just been a lot more fun.
Awesome. Christy?
Well, I have no background whatsoever in investing, really, except I was working a bunch of jobs I did not like doing and trying to put like $200 a month away into a mutual fund. And finally one day I got the calculator out and I'm like, I'm going to be 97 before I can retire. This isn't going to work. And then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And in 2006, I moved to the States from Canada and to start a business. And actually the timing worked out well because it took me couple of years to go through the immigration, but that's a 2-year story. Anyway, I finally got all the paperwork I needed to get in place, and then I started buying in 2008. So timing was perfect.
And what do you do? What do you focus on now?
So yeah, just flipping single-family houses under $1 million. I don't do the high-end stuff. Southern California, mostly LA County. But as far north as Ventura County, and then out to Riverside, the odd one out to Riverside and San Bernardino, and down to North San Diego County.
Cool. Thank you very much for that. So I started very similar to Christy, where I wanted to bang my head against the computer doing taxes and audit. So that was lots of fun. I'm like, I can't do this for 40 years. I'm going to go crazy. It's tax. Who wants to pay the government money? So it was funny because yesterday I wore a T-shirt to work because it was really hot, and this is a CPA firm downstairs, and he started laughing really, really hard because I had a T-shirt that said "taxation is theft" on it. The CPA firm was like looking at me like you're crazy. So and I'm like, I'm the only CPA that will wear that shirt. But so I got started in real estate when I was working for that firm, and my stepbrother calls me and says, "There's this real estate school. You have to go to this thing." And I'm like, well, how much do you spend on it? And he's like, $16,000. I'm like, you got jacked immediately. You got jacked. He's like, you have to go to this thing. He's like, oh, I'm like, okay, fine, I'll go. And then the day comes down to it. I'm like, I'm not going to go. I'm totally going to flake on him. And he, it's the California, yeah, I'll see you there. No problem. But it doesn't ever happen, right? And so he calls me the day of. He's like, no, you have to go. Come on, you have to go. And so he forced me to go. And I'm sitting there at this meeting and, not really believing anything anybody says, of course. And they're talking about the real estate school that's $16,000. And at the end of the meeting, they're like, okay, you're either number 1, number 2, or number 3. Number 1, you're ready now. Number 2, you have questions. Number 3, it's not for you. And I'm like, well, where do I give you my credit card? Like, I need to go do this immediately. And it was one of the best real estate schools or classes I've ever taken, and really was beneficial for about 5% of the people there because they would actually do something with it. But at the same time, it got me, I guess, confident enough, even though maybe I shouldn't have been, to jump ship and go into real estate full time and start. And when the market crashed, I had 35 properties in process, all at the same time, and lost everything, which was probably the best thing for me at the time because my ego went from here, I'm dope, flipping houses, and it was really the market that was doing it, down to, oh crap, I suck, So, and then I ended up taking a couple $100,000 out on credit cards to pay my investors back and go down with the ship and take my lumps, But since then, we've flipped about 600 houses. I didn't quit. We flip about 10 a month now.
We also buy a lot of value-add multifamilies. We invest in promissory notes. We do some private lending. We also raise a lot of capital and invest in syndications and things like that as well. So it's a lot more fun than working at a CPA firm, even though I work a hell of a lot more. I can tell you at my CPA firm, you're looking at the clock going, how is it only 9 o'clock? And now I look down and I'm like, how is it already 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night? Going, oh man, but now that I have a son, I'm like, now I don't want to work anymore. I want to systematize everything as much as I possibly can. I have a 2-year-old now, and he's already been playing with cash flow for kids, the Robert Kiyosaki game, of course, with the little game pieces. He wants to eat them right now, but I'm trying my hardest to get him to not do it. So that being said, I think we have some great experience up here. And I want to start off with probably the hardest thing, I think, in this kind of a market to do, which is trying to find properties and how you analyze these things. And I already talked to these guys, and they're like, we don't do anything for finding properties. We just fall up on our lap. So, but in order for that to happen, you guys developed a substantial amount of relationships, right? And so tell us a little bit about how these deals come to you and why you think they come to you in the first place. Because I think the way you guys did it is very unique and very organic, which I think is extremely key, especially in a tight market.
Yeah, I think the key to how we found deals and how we still find them is we empower people to find their own. We teach people how to find deals, and we don't charge for it. We give all of our resources away to everybody. And tell them, here's a bunch of ways to find deals, here's how you calculate them, here's a bunch of presentations to give you the confidence you need or whatever. So we just give this stuff away to people. It helps that we have the club, because we have a lot of people that come out that are interested in learning, and we just give them the stuff. If they want to then joint venture with us, great, we're happy to do it. We'll do the deal with them, split profit 50-50. But we also have another side where we market to real estate agents. So there's probably not a real estate agent in Riverside that doesn't know who we are. They're probably not irritated by us in some form or fashion, because we're constantly marketing to them. It costs us nothing. We spend no money on marketing to these people other than the cost of putting on the meeting, I guess you could say, or the cost of having our internet connection. But it's a very great way to just sort of multiply our efforts. Instead of us trying to find the deals, me and Steven, instead we have hundreds of people that are constantly looking for stuff, and we've already proven to be a buyer where we close, and so that's a big deal. Once you have that reputation, then the deals just start falling into your lap.
So what are the benefits that you guys bring to the table as far as when someone wants to come and joint venture with you? What do they lack that you guys have that enable you to joint venture with them?
In most cases, it's capital. People are afraid of having a couple $100,000 at play at any given time, and they don't know where they're going to get it from. A lot of hard money lenders now check credit, and we've noticed a lot of people that want to get started in this business have terrible credit. So capital is usually like a very big motivator for these people, that they want to do it, they just don't know how to put the money together. And then there's the other side of people that are like, okay, I get a deal, fantastic. What do I do about the construction? They don't have any construction experience. They have no idea how to calculate how much all that stuff will cost. So people are very nervous, and they really need somebody to just hold their hand, especially on the first deal. So we have some people we're working on where we've done like 3 deals with the same person, but they're like ready to move on to their own now because we've taught them.
It's interesting because, from that perspective, the lending piece is the smaller of those two benefits.
Yeah.
The money side, it's a lot easier to raise capital in this market than it is to manage contractors, manage the system, know how to sell it, know what all of these things cost, because that's the hardest piece, is learning that side.
Well, so I want to put like ellipses around what Todd said, because if you don't have the context of understanding where we come from, I did acquisition for other investors for 5+ years. Mm-hmm. So from 2000, actually I sold Todd every property him and his mom bought as cash flow properties. So through the acquisition phase, you learn what works, like with realtors, and the REO market was very different. Mm-hmm. But I have a presentation that I've done in a bunch of clubs called 40 Ways to Find a Deal, and almost every one of those is a network hack. It's not spending money, because people, like you were talking about, interesting ways to market using, whether it's software, using click, like pay-per-click, conversion pages. There's people with these like amazing like A/B testing, like tested landing pages. The truth is, like, you get a trade. You either have social skills and you learn to talk to people, and they bring you deals. That's your Uber driver, your gardener, the person who cleans homes, the dog walker, every person who's out in the world every day. The guy who delivers Arrowhead water bottles, UPS driver. And you need to be making them aware of what you do. So, like Tom Ferry always says, that don't be a secret agent line, right? Like, you need to be telling people what it is you do. And then there's this component with the joint venture now where people say like, I don't have money or I don't have resources. Well, we don't have money either. We don't use any of our own money. 100% of our deals are funded through private investors. We don't put any of our own capital in a deal, and they're all first deeds of trust to protect our investors. So to say you don't have the money just means you don't have the skill to know how to form it. And then the analysis, we give you a spreadsheet that you literally punch some numbers and answer questions, and it spits out the answer. So like, now what? And so we've sort of lifted every barrier, and that's why we get a lot of the joint venture stuff. But sometimes people are like, I just want to wholesale it, and can I still hang out with you guys? I can learn the process. But we actually get a lot of just phone calls from all the people we met over the last decade, and it was just time. Time wins in this business. If you're around a decade, you probably have more knowledge than anybody else in the room.
I agree with you guys, absolutely, except for me. So you guys, you guys are right there. And, Christy probably knows more than all of us combined. So, with this stuff. So, Christy, can you talk a little bit about how you find your deals, which I think is unique as well, because I don't think any of you guys do it the way that they teach you how to do it, right? With the direct mail, pay by click, and all that stuff. So, how do you focus and find your deals?
So it's very different now than when I first started in 2008 up to maybe 2013. You could actually get most of your deals off the MLS. So I was getting probably 90% of my deals through agents and wholesalers who were also getting them through agents or off the MLS. So that's the way it was being done back then. You could get short sales, REOs, even equity sales that were, fixer-uppers. And one thing I will mention is I joined a B&I group when I first moved here because I didn't know one person, so I had to do some kind of networking. And so B&I, if you don't know, is Business Network International, and it's got all kinds of people that you can use for your flipping business. I'm still using the same termite guy I met 10 years ago from B&I. And also I was getting referrals. So there was a business attorney in the group who was she's probably referred me, half a dozen deals. And that's just building a relationship and having somebody know what it is you do. Now I just continue to network, and what you guys said, it's the longer you're in the business, it does become a little easier because people remember that you're in the business. One of the things I do to stay in contact with my real estate agents is I have a monthly newsletter. And I'm not really, I'll put a little reminder in there, hey, remember me for your fixer-upper deals, but really you don't need to do that because they see your name, they see a couple before and after pictures, they know what you do, you're at top of mind with them for, at least that one time per month. And just other networking that I do, just all the things you guys are probably doing as well. Probate attorneys. Now, this takes a while. You can't just show up and say, knock on a probate attorney's door and say, hey, I want to buy your fixer-uppers that your clients need to sell. But it does take time, and it can be done. And even now I'm posting before and after pictures on Facebook, and I'm not really asking, hey, does anybody have any fixer-uppers? But people know I'm in the business, and so it does.
It's a matter of having people be aware.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think you've gotten a number of referrals out of our provisors group. Christy and I are at our Cerritos provisors group together, and it was funny because I joined and I'm like, oh, Christy's in here, great. And it's funny because I get investors that come to me for different things on the structuring side or the cash flow side, or different 1031 exchange investors that want to invest in cash flow out of state, because I do most of my stuff in Memphis, Tennessee, out of state. And and Christy gets she's known in the group, so the person that buys hoarder homes and focuses on that. So a lot of the different attorneys or CPAs or other professionals in the group, they have a ton of clients, and all of these people are connectors. So anytime you're dealing with a higher level professional that works with multiple clients in different ways, don't think of it as having to be a realtor or someone in your industry specifically. All these other people are great ways to find those one-off deals that might end up being 12 a year or something along those lines, you know? And I started for the first 8 years, I did no direct mail, no pay-by-click marketing at all. It was all realtor relationships, wholesaler relationships, pocket listings, or, you know, REOs or auction sites. And, you know, it's a matter of analyzing hundreds of these things on a consistent basis and constantly focusing on buying as much as you can. And it's interesting because we just recently, you know, a couple of years ago, started doing the pay-by-click and direct mail marketing, and it's a whole nother animal in itself, because you can spend your way out of any profit in a deal if you do it incorrectly. And if you don't track your numbers in detail, you will lose money in that arena. So, you know, on our side, on the direct mail, we use contact management systems for this. We have call systems for this. We have virtual assistants for this. We have people meeting appointments consistently, just like Deke does on his stuff. We have, you know, all the data outlined, where it literally costs us $4,000 per house to buy that, and that's really inefficient. We should be down to $2,000 a house. So I look at that as great. I have an opportunity to tweak my system, and now I know that every deal I buy, if it costs me $4,000 and I make 10, that's a deal. Even if it's $6,000 or $10,000 that I make on a deal, which is not a lot of money on a wholesale deal, but I know that I can at least be profitable and wholesale those deals off and not do any work on them if I'm not making a lot of money on that flip. So I think it's important to understand the different aspects and how to categorize these deals and track them correctly if you're going to do any kind of outside marketing.
You know what you said, and I think all of us said, and you hear repeatedly, people keep talking about the number of offers you make. Whenever I meet people that are new in the business, they get discouraged by the number of offers they've made. And what people fail to realize is that every time your name is on the top of an offer page, that's a billboard. And if that's in somebody's inbox, that's your name in their inbox. And if your name is in their inbox enough times, they're going to remember you. And they may not remember you right now or 3 months from now, but 6 months from now, like that crazy person that kept calling me about all my deals, or, you know, they call the listing agent or calling an attorney or whoever the person is, they drove me crazy for a long enough time. They're like, nobody else wants this piece of crap. I'm going to call him, right? And then I get the call because they saw my name 400 times. Don't let the number of offers you make be discouraging. You should see every one as like just another point, like I'm getting closer to my deal.
Right. And it's the same thing when you're dealing with direct mail or pay-by-click to homeowners, where you got to badger them for years even, where you're going through and 2 years later you have a certain percentage of those deals that you called 2 years earlier that will call you back because their situation changed. So you always have a follow-up system. You know, I think they talk about the 12th hit, you have a 50% conversion rate or something like that, you know, on a lot of these things, and it really is true. The people that are consistent at this and don't give up on calling, you know, for years in advance or years into the future, have you know, a much less chance of getting actually those deals than the people that do. So I mean, I think it's key. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, how to analyze a deal. Like when you guys, Christy, when you go look at a deal initially, what does it have to look like as far as profitability versus costs to want to pick up that deal?
I used to work off about 12% return, and that's like more like 7% if I'm lucky these days. Because even when I'm buying direct through seller, they still know what they can get for their property. I recently bought one in Anaheim, and I show up and I was high 300s, and somebody else had seen the dumpster on the front lawn and had gone up and made an offer, and they were at 415. And because I had been able to establish a decent rapport with the seller, he says, if you could just come up to 400, I'll sell it to you. So I still got that, but it's about a 7 or 8% deal. Really, if you do it for any less than that, it's not really worth it because it's too much risk. When you think about you're trying to flip a house for $600,000, if you have to do a price drop, or if the market adjusts, or it's a hoarding situation and you run into, you know, thousands of extras of some surprise, which has happened, you know, when you talk about a sewer system that hasn't been used in years, I mean, that's $2,000 if you have to fix that. And sometimes you don't know because you can't even get into the house to turn on faucets and whatnot. So I try to really stick to that 8 to 10% return if I can. I'll dip down to 7 or 8% only if it's a house that is it's in the middle of the street, it's a 3-bed, 2, like something just really easy to remodel that is going to be easy to sell. It's in that right price point. So, just time to ask a question.
Clarify, 7 or 8% what?
It's net to sale. So, let's say I'm selling a house for $500,000. I'm looking, so 8% of that would be $40,000. That should be my profit.
And you can see why if you dip any further below that, I mean, you could have $10,000 of surprises. The market could shift, or you could be wrong on your comps by 10 grand or 20 grand. Mm-hmm. I mean, it can be really easy to break even on a deal if you're, with those margins. And in a market like California, when it's very highly volatile, you want to make sure you're protected for that downside risk and being able to make sure you can get out of that deal as fast as you possibly can and in and out. It could drop, it's not going to drop a lot right in the middle of your flip, unless all of a sudden there's some major catastrophe. I mean, yeah, it happened to us, right? I'm like, never mind. But
don't say it's not. Man, I experienced that. New Century went under, we all went broke.
Yeah. It'll never happen again, right? So,
but I can be pretty accurate with my rehab costs too.
Right.
So if you're just doing your first deal, aim for 10 and try to stick with that, because I know, you can get into it. You don't realize until halfway through you didn't do your rehab numbers right. So whereas I feel pretty confident with my numbers, so I can do a little tighter. But
and what do you guys need to see on your deals? What do you guys focus on as far as margin and stuff?
So we kind of work the problem a little differently. We don't start from how much we want to make on the deal. Instead, we've kind of boiled that down now because we're like spreadsheet junkies. So over enough time, trying to build the most complicated looking spreadsheet in the history of mankind to calculate a deal got really difficult. So we boiled it down to, let's just make this simple for everybody to understand, because we're a lot of times dealing with newer people. So we tell everybody we'll buy it at 75% of ARV minus the rehab cost. So they only need to know 2 things. That's all people have to figure out, is how much are we to resell it for, and how much does it cost to do the rehab. And that's the 2 things we focus on when we teach people how to find deals. This is how you figure out what the ARV is, this is how you do comps, and then this is how you calculate rehab costs. So we have, and some of the technology we're building right now is to even make this even more simple. Okay. So that's what we focus on, 35% of ARV minus rehab. And that generally nets us somewhere between a 12 to 15% return on our money.
Okay. And when you guys, and it's great because you've got an army of people out there helping you find these deals. And you mentioned something very key, which I think is important for everybody in the room, right? What are the 2 X factors? You're talking about market value and you're talking about rehab amount, right? And those are both the arts that you have to master to do this business. And so you said you teach people how to analyze the rehab or know that piece. How do you teach people that without walking them through Home Depot yourself and showing them parts and materials, and higher low-end houses have different materials and everything else, right? So how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, actually Steve would be a good one to explain this because he's the one that came up with the formula.
Okay.
So we're going to be building
$30 a square foot, and that's it. You're done. So.
No, actually, but we have fairly simple homes in the Inland Empire, right?
Okay.
We don't have much hillside. We don't have there's not a lot of weird. It's very suburban. So imagine that all our homes fit in 3 categories: pre-1940s. Actually, the whole 1940s all sucks. So 1940s is its own world because during the war. 1950 to 1975, and 1975 to 1999, and then newer homes we just generally avoid because the taxes suck and they're hard to sell. But so we created 5 categories: poor, fair, good, great, perfect. And then each one of those gets a cost per square foot, and we did it based on 1,000 square feet, so at scale it will be an artificially high number. And it's I think at good it's at $10 a square foot, because no matter how good it is, you still got to do something because you got to add value, it won't appraise. And then it's like 18, 30, 40, and good luck. I think something like that. And that the idea in doing it at 1,000 square feet meant that if you were new, one, it would actually discourage you from getting large homes because you shouldn't be buying large homes when you're new. So if you're going to have a super fat rehab by fat I mean like a very large rehab number on a home that's 4,000 square feet, because you just shouldn't be buying 4,000 square feet if you're brand new. And then if you're down to 1,000 square feet, that number is pretty damn concise. Like, I know exactly how much a kitchen costs in that size house. Like, I know exactly how much I'm paying per foot or for floor. And so when we give those generalities, people, when I get the sheets back from them, they're within a couple $1,000s every time. You can't really teach rehab, you have to experience rehab, right? But you can teach value. And value, all you have to do is tell people to go look at a whole bunch of homes. And we generally tell people to just focus on one area. So if you're an agent and you're new, one of the first things that your office manager will tell you to do is sort of pick a farm area and start knocking doors and talking to people, right? Well, what happens is you become the area expert because you walk that area constantly, which means you know that Sally sold her home down the block for $430,000 and it had this in it, and I've seen the pictures, and I took 3 clients through it, and I understood what that property was. As a consumer, right, as a person who's a buyer of homes, you're going to look at that home and go, okay, this home is worth less or more than another home. Well, after you've looked at like 300 homes in that neighborhood, let's say it's 1,000 homes, you're going to pretty much know the value of a home the second you see it. So it's not about like crazy formulas or whatever. It's an art, and like both of these are an art, especially material costs and like the end design. But when it comes to value, all you're trying to determine the whole time is my home, when it's done, going to be better or worse than the home I'm currently comparing it to? And then we start at the lowest price, we work all the way down until we find a home nicer than ours. And then we stop there. We don't look for the highest comp, none of that stuff. And we have some other parameters, like if the highest sale in the zip code is $500,000 and you think it's worth $550,000, you're probably wrong. So it's things like that, because people they need these barriers. And then, matter of fact, I would say 75% of our deals, we don't pull comps outside the neighborhood. Like literally within like the
quarter mile or something like that.
Not even quarter mile. We draw like the track number. We draw a line around the track.
Okay,
that's it.
Interesting. That's awesome. What about you, Christy? What do you do when you're analyzing your rehabs? You send your contract. I think you said you send your contractor in or something like that and say, what's the number?
Well, actually, I can sort of do that now.
Okay,
too.
cool.
Yeah, and usually mine are pretty extensive, because if it's a hoarding situation, you're talking usually closer to 6 figures. But you see one, you see them all after a while. They don't look the same, but I can usually get within a couple thousand of what my contractor will bid it for. So, but that's just experience, and I've looked at 300 houses, so. It's practice.
So
and I have a little cheat sheet too.
When you walk through the property, you're trying to allocate a cost to doing everything, basically.
Yeah.
Especially if you're dealing with a hoarder house where you can't see the walls or the kitchen
Right.
or certain things, right?
And there's been houses I can't even get in, so I've had to walk around the outside to figure out, okay, what does this layout actually look like? And you sort of piece it together from the outside. But generally I have sort of a base number I go off of. So sort of like this, if it's 1,000 square feet, it's going to be, this much for the basic stuff. And the basic stuff is flooring, painting inside and outside, kitchen, bathrooms, windows, and basic landscaping. And that's sort of the base number, and then you just start adding on from there. So, I've paid $14,000 to clear out a hoard before. That's just in dumpsters and trash out. It seems like a lot, but it is a lot. So I think I've had 22 dumpsters on one property. So that's how much.
$250 a pop, right?
There were like the church organs. There was a 2-story garage in the back that was actually bigger than the 1,200 square foot house, and it was full of those things. and the roof on the garage had leaked over time, so everything was wet, and the insulation was just piled on top of each other. So it's just a mess.
You didn't call those antique guys that come in there and try to I'd be like, there's another business in this thing right here.
I know. I wish they could have been salvaged. It's such a waste, so much stuff, but. Yeah, and then usually the shrubbery is out of control too, right? So I've had, a couple dumpsters just trying to get rid of, trees and overgrown brush. So usually the backyards I can't even see. So anyway, what was the question? Yeah. I can tell you so many stories. That's more interesting. But yeah, no, after a while you can do one, and I can share my cheat sheet if people want to see it. It's nothing probably as extensive what you guys have, but it's a good start. And the more you see, the more you can practice. You go in and just practice, looking at houses and running the numbers.
So as a rule, what's the lowest rehab you've ever had? Like on a porterhouse, like what's your low number when you start? And I don't mean like what's your intro number. I mean so we look at a house, and if somebody gives me a number under 18,000, like I've already ignored your number.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what anything that starts with a 1 would even.
That's what I'm getting.
Like a basic 2-1. 1,000 square feet, you're looking at $35,000. I don't know how people do it for any less than that.
No, seriously.
I have a licensed guy I work with workers' comp. The wages are going up these days, and this is what it costs. And this is just a basic. That's not even a hoarded situation. That's just your basic interior, exterior paint, flooring, kitchen, bathroom, 1 bathroom that includes windows, and just basic landscaping, not any kind of major brush clearing.
And when you're looking at these comps to go along with it, what do you typically focus on when you're looking at the comps? How do you determine what that
same way as these guys. So I'll just draw it, not even a radius. I'll go, from major streets to major streets, and sometimes you have to go a little further. But if you're not quite sure of the neighborhood, I actually drive that neighborhood and make sure, because Long Beach, you can go 2 streets over and have a completely different neighborhood, and it's a completely different comp. You know this. If you know Long Beach, you go north of 4th Street is different than north of 7th Street, which is different than north of 13th. And zip codes, you have to watch out for that. You also have to watch out for cities changing. You've got Temple City, Arcadia, and Monrovia all like within that little same pocket. So you've got to know if your school districts change. So
I think that's really important. Something a lot of people don't do is drive those comps to make sure they're comparing apples to apples, because you look at Culver City, for example, and I was looking at some property there, and right across the freeway is a different neighborhood completely than where, on the other side. And so, and I think this is where wholesalers get in trouble as well, where they try to wholesale deals and throw them out there, but their market value or the rehab numbers aren't necessarily always accurate. And so, 99% of the time, except for Deeks deals, are accurate. Well, yeah, the subjective number. The rehabs are very subjective, and it becomes very difficult to do that, And we actually, on our deals, ours are very cookie cutter on the rehab because a lot of them are rental properties. And so, we actually analyzed the last 50 deals we did, and we didn't go over $20, $25 a square foot on any of those things. But at the same time, now we use $20 a square foot as our number, and then we go through and say, okay, well, it has and during our walkthrough, we're like, well, it has pitched ceilings, add this much. It needs a new kitchen, add this much. It needs a new roof, add this much. And so we do those additions for those bigger or those weird things that come up, on our side. But, we also go through it, get a more detailed bid, because on the outside it could be totally different. And you know how much it costs to take out trees? And, your insurance company is not going to let you keep those trees, especially on a rental property. And, if you're flipping and you've got some giant trees in the front yard that you can't see the house anymore, you got to get rid of them. And that can be $5,000. It can be $2,000, $5,000. In Tennessee, it's like a lot cheaper because I deal with Tennessee labor, of course. But, here it could be a lot of money. It could cost you a lot. But, so when you're dealing with the rehabs and the market value, those are the 2 X factors that you have to get dialed in really well. And if you're not sure, if you can't walk through a house and understand what the rehab is now, then go through and practice on listings, on other properties. Just do a walkthrough and go to Home Depot and start pricing everything out. Go to Lowe's or all the other, places that you buy materials from, and these outlet stores and things like that, and start pricing things out to understand what things cost.
So don't be afraid to renegotiate either.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like that. People. So everybody thinks they got to get them right the first time. Renegotiate every damn time. Like, have a contractor walk it right when it's under contract. Now you're not wasting time. And then if the contractor came in at $47,000, sorry, I need to pay $3,000 less. and then be willing to be like, sorry, I don't want it then.
And I think that's really important to understand is, a lot of the acquisition piece is selling, is learning how to talk to homeowners and developing that rapport like Christy just talked about, where she's getting the deal lower than someone else because of that rapport in the first place. You have to find the pain points and things like that. So Christy, what are some of the pain points you see out there when someone's trying to sell a house? What's causing them that pain that makes them want to sell that house to you?
Well, I think in that one case, it was that he just trusted me. I mean, there's a lot of, it shouldn't be that hard to actually do this business because there's some shady characters out there, and you can see through that. When you're a homeowner and you're trying to deal with an aunt who just passed away, and you flew in to California and you realized her house has been a hoarded mess for 30 years, where do you even start with that? You want somebody who's going to come up and be compassionate and not just want to take your house and write an offer and it not be a fair offer. I still give a really fair offer, and it's obviously got to work for me, and I tell them that up front. Obviously there's a small profit in here for me, but this has got to work for you too. Otherwise, I'm not going to feel good about buying your house. And they sense that. They sense that, and it takes 10 minutes to build that rapport, and they know that about you. So it's, their pain point is they've got a situation on their hands that they need to get rid of, and they want the person that they feel will actually keep their word and close.
Yeah, I think that's what we find is that every single house that we've bought started with an inconvenient house for the owner. It's something that's inconveniencing their life in some form or fashion. So, that could be, like Christy just said, somebody just died in the home, or like the owner passed away. It could be a hoarder house. It could be, for a number of reasons, like people lost their job, people are in bankruptcy, people are, there's a lot of different ways people get into these situations, but it's inconvenient for them to own it, and they want out. In most cases, they need out, and they're willing to trade the headache for some of their equity.
I think it's absolutely key to understand too, there is pain in that case. There's something that's causing them to want to sell this house quickly, and instead of a lot of investors or newer investors focus on price instead of focusing on what you're going to do for that investor or that homeowner and how you're going to solve their problem and how their life is going to change tomorrow or in a week when they have cash in their hand for their house, and how now they have all this cash, they're cash rich and they're completely out of their situation and in a much better, mental and financial state because they got rid of this monkey on their back immediately, which, could be a disarrayed house or a giant hole in a roof that they can't patch, or, someone just went through a major divorce and is just emotionally drained and can't deal with having to fix up your house and sell it. And you talk about all the pain points that you have to go through if they were going to try to list their property with an MLS agent, on the MLS and things like that. And we go through and even try to, if they won't sell us their house, we try to get the listing too and see if we can get the listing instead, and that just adds additional cash in your pocket to go against your marketing budget, or if, in your pocket if you're getting referrals, of course. So, I think all that is key. And so let's talk about the money piece really quick. Okay, so normally you have a number of lenders involved. Sometimes you might just have one lender, a private investor. Sometimes you might have, a professional lender that's going to come in. And I don't like saying hard money because the other hard money lenders in the room are going to get pissed off at me. But, so the private money in the room, that makes it harder to make a profit. But anyway, so those guys, but they do a giant benefit for you. So there's professional lenders in the room. Yeah, I love ripping on you guys for the lending side.
I feel like they help.
Yeah.
They facilitate.
That's awesome. So they used to lend all the time, and now they bring the money to the table. But you guys have a ton of other benefits that most lenders don't, So, and when I look at, the different pieces that you either need one private lender to JV with, or you need a hard money lender or private money lender that's going to give you a piece of it, and you either got to put your own money in or you got to bring another private money lender in for the rest of it, right? So, and I think developing those relationships are very key. And so, and having
plenty of private investors on deck that can come in and gap fill what the first position lender won't lend to can be key, unless you're doing a joint venture and splitting profit. But how do you guys do it? Tell me how you guys structure these things.
As soon as you say second position money, we're in quarter 4, and you say second position money, I want to put a bullet in my head.
Yeah, but I'm talking about less than 75% of market value. Now you're not going up to 90%.
We're borrowing by 80 to 82% of the property value, of the future value.
Okay, you have to hit it for that.
But I want, so one of the very important parts of how you actually borrow and structure your deals is that your exit strategy is a rental.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you're going to borrow today, and we're in like a ridiculously multi-million-dollar lawsuit with third position money, mind you, with $200 and something thousand of our investors' third position money, with somebody who basically totally screwed the deal in the first position anyway, I can't give a lot of details because we're in a lawsuit, but we're suing the guy because he's trying to rob our investors, and you hear Bruce Norris, I remember I was interviewing him, and he stopped me, and he was like, no, it's called hard money because it's hard to make, right? He's like, he's sort of put the kibosh on, look, those people earned that, and so we want to protect our investors' capital, and so I'm going to blow Jeff up in the back of the room, but Jeff's a private lender. He lends his own money. He has his own clients, and his book's full. Jeff doesn't have any money for you unless he says he does. But he's going to be concerned about capital preservation. And so, as a private lender, and you're concerned about capital preservation, you want to know what happens if it goes to complete crap, right? If this deal fails, what's going to happen? Well, in LA County, right, if you had a failure, the market crashed, your yield on a rental is probably 2%, right, from the amount you lent. And the Empire moves more towards 4 to 8%, depending on how high desert or whatever. When you make a private money loan, or you ask of somebody private money, we believe, especially from the old loan structure we had, that you should have a first only that covers the entire project cost. Because in a failure, after a year I can say, hey, investor, I did everything I could. I gave you a turnkey product. It didn't sell. Here's your property back. Now you can rent it and weather the downturn with yield from a rental. Mm-hmm. And if you have second place money, you can't do that. That money gets wiped out by the first. And so I extremely discourage people to gap fund.
Okay. Yeah, I have 9, 10 cap, rentals.
Yes.
So I have plenty of cash flow in there to make that happen, and I can always refinance and completely cover that.
Yeah, outside of California.
And I've also been dealing with a lot of times on second position money. If you're lending that money, I would recommend doing cross collateral or something like that as well. If someone else has additional assets, to be able to put that against to make sure he doesn't do it in California here.
You know what I think of it is, if the deal doesn't stand on its own 2 feet, don't do the deal. Well, if I have to cross collateralize or give second position money, I don't want to do the deal.
I do that for capital sources that are newer sources, or if I'm.
So they feel comfortable.
Yeah, so they feel comfortable. That's all. That's the only reason. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm not going to be in it for more than I need to be in to make my flip money. I need to make my margins. And now in Tennessee, it's 10 to 15%.
That's an amazing cap.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a great cap rate. I'm buying $150,000 houses out in that market too. So you're talking about $30,000 seconds, not $150,000.
These are huge seconds.
So right. So it's not like I couldn't go and be like, here's $30,000, dude.
Totally.
So in that kind of a situation. But when you're dealing with, and a lot of people focus. So there's professional lenders that focus on second position money because they're making ridiculously high yields on that money, and so they're also taking a risk, but. Just like Jeff does in the back. Jeff, can you raise your hand real quick? Jeff has actually spoken at our club about private lending in the past, and he focuses on people that are experienced, that know what they're doing, that have a good level of base knowledge. And whenever you're doing business with someone and lending them money, it's much more important to deal with somebody that has that experience level than someone that is new. And so you have the guys like Jeff that have their own capital that will lend you money, but be a little bit more conservative with you, especially in the beginning, and don't want to do business with you if you're brand new. And then you have the professional lenders that they're going to kill you on interest rate, but then they'll lend you money all day long.
And so as long as the deal makes sense in the first place, right? And so you have different mindsets of different investors out there. There's guys that will do 90% of cost all day long for you, but they got to be under 75% of market value, and they're cool with that. But it depends on the lender. There's tons of different lenders out there, but if you're borrowing money, just like Steven's saying, you make sure they're protected. You make sure at all times your investors are taken care of.
You're like one of the most cautious people I know. Like when I see your math, it's like, here's all the ways I'm going to bail you out. Well, and that's why I brought it up, because you're safe here, safe here, safe here, safe here.
Well, that's why I give them cross collateral. I never plan on losing their money. So if I am, it's 30 grand. I'm like, okay, well I can cover that.
But I bring it up because some of us in the room are really good at this, right? And Todd and I have talked on several occasions about having a fund, putting second place money in, and these are high net worth people. It's a small fraction of their and they have the risk appetite. And I still don't want to do it because I've had to call people and make that phone call. Yeah. It sucks. But we're changing our structure, and Todd will probably talk more about it anyway because he handles the back end paperwork. But if I were to start brand new today and I wanted to get an idea how to structure my deal, it would be joint venture and take one third of the net proceeds in the beginning and let a private money lender and an experienced person make the other thirds. And then I would graduate at some point to where at 50-50 was under the capital, right? And then they put up 100% of the capital and I'd run the deal. And then eventually, like where we're at, we can give the investor 1/3 of the net proceeds, and you keep the 2/3. And so it's like this graduation over time, and what you're doing is you're trading experience for money, and eventually your experience graduates into people are fighting to give you money.
Right. And then basically what happens in that kind of a situation is you slowly over time, over 10 years of doing this, you develop so many capital relationships where you just don't need the money anymore, and then at some point your rates start to go down and things like that. I mean, I'm looking at right now $1 million line of credit from a bank at 5% right now for my flips. And so what do you think is going to happen to some of my private investors? I'm going to say, well, I need to find a home for you right now, to find a way to utilize that capital and make money, but at the same time making sure they're protected, but I don't need it for my flips anymore. So, those are the types of things that over time you slowly develop, and as you show your balance sheet expands and you become more experienced, you're able to get better and better financing, and some of these commercial smaller banks will finance you at really, really decent rates over time, So, Christy, how do you deal with your funding sources? What do you typically do?
I do 2 trust deeds per property. Okay. Don't shoot me. I do not do JVs. I think it's safer to put people in a trust deed position. I never touch the money. I don't have a securities license. The money gets wired right into escrow, and a hard money will fund up to 90. It's usually 90% of the purchase price, and then a private lender will fund the balance of the purchase price, and either all or part. Sometimes I put a bit of my own money in of the rehab. So that's the way I structure it. It's worked, and to use the example of a property that I'm trying to resell for $500,000. Okay, so let's say I'm working off an 8 to 10% return. My profit's supposed to be $40,000 to $50,000. So basic math here: what would I need to sell that What would I need to sell that property for in order to break even and not make anything? $450,000, right? So my investors are getting paid. So I would have to be $50,000 off of my comps before. So I wouldn't take any money, but my investors still get paid back. So that's why I think they're in a safe position to just take the trustee. So, but I do 2 per property.
And can you kind of go over the paperwork typically involved when you're dealing with a private lender and how you protect them with the paperwork?
Technically, a private lender is supposed to do their own note and deed of trust, but most people don't know how to do that. So I have done it. They have the choice if they want to review it by a lawyer or not. But usually hard money, they have their own loan documents, so that's pretty straightforward. But a private lender will still get a note and a deed of trust. The deed of trust is what gets recorded against the property that puts the lien in place. The note is what spells out the term. So you're loaning $80,000, you're getting this much interest, it's going to get paid back when the property sells or within 10 months, whichever is sooner. The details of the note. It's pretty easy. It's 1 page, pretty straightforward to read.
What about you guys?
Yeah, we have a pretty complicated structure. I think we're about the only people in the country doing it this way. We have a lending company, Rehab Loan Group. It's a licensed California finance lender. So Rehab Loan Group has a California-only exemption for securities regulation called a 25102F. These are very boring details, but
I can tell you do the paperwork here.
Yeah, I do the paperwork. Yeah, so we do a short form deed of trust. We originate it as Rehab Loan Group to us. It's our company we're lending to. We originate the deed of trust, but then we do what's called a hypothecation, where that deed of trust is the collateral for a loan that a lender is going to make to us. These are business purpose loans, and they're able to lend to us, falling under the 25102F securities exemption, because these are not securities in the traditional sense of the word. So we get an exemption, and as long as the money's coming from California and it's being invested in California, at least 80% of it, which 100% of it is, then they fall under our exemption. So these hypothecation documents, the piece of paper that is the deed of trust and the promissory note that Rehab Loan Group originates is the piece of collateral for the loan that the lender is making to us. It's, if you think of the deed of trust like a car, it's like lending on a car. That's the piece of asset. So if we default, which we don't, but if we did, the lender that lent Rehab Loan Group the money would sue Rehab Loan Group to get the deed of trust, and then they can go through the foreclosure process. It's one extra step, but because of the regulations that exist in California, it's the only way we can do the type of leverage we put into the deals and ticking every single compliance box, because we wanted to make sure everything we did was fully compliant. We've had all this stuff reviewed by actually 3 teams of attorneys.
Yeah.
So
spent a lot of money.
Yeah, we spent a lot of money. I have a very expensive paperweight that called a private placement memorandum. If you ever want to waste some money, just get one of those. So yeah, it's a complicated process called hypothecation. Banks do this all the time. It's actually a very common structure for banks. Where they bring in money from all kinds of different sources, and they collateralize all kinds of different debt pieces they have all over the place. So it's a common thing for them. When we talk to the mid-market people and people like that have the big bucks, they completely understand it. But when we try to explain it to somebody that's never invested in real estate before, it's fairly difficult. So it's much easier to just say it's a first position deed of trust.
I think it's key to, one second. I think it's key to understand the way hypothecation works. What it really is, all you're doing is lending money and collateralizing your loan instead of collateralizing the property. And the way you can protect your investor in that case, instead of giving them a deed of trust, because you already have the deed of trust that you went on the that are secured against the property, you're giving them an assignment of deed of trust to protect their interest. At least that's the way I do it, when I'm doing a hypothecation or something along those lines.
I mean, naturally speaking, if we wouldn't actually allow one of our investors to sue us, we would just give them the deed of trust. I mean, we're not going to actually hold them hostage with that. But the other side we do it now too is the joint venture partner, the joint venture agreement we have with an investor. This is a new thing. We just launched it. We're actually about to buy our first property with this structure, but it's going to be a partnership that we create, and then we basically give the investor 1/3 of the profit at the end. They put up the money, but we have this partnership together. The partnership owns the property, so it's an equity position rather than a debt position. So there will be no deed of trust on those types of structures.
Okay, and I think it's important to understand too, when you guys are lending money, most of the time you should be being put as the lost payee on the insurance policy. In my market, because I'm renting, I give them an assignment of rents and leases. If you're a new investor trying to borrow money from private investors, you want to try to find ways to decrease their risk and to enable them to lend you that money in the first place. And so a lot of times some people ask for personal guarantees, which I know he's not going to do it, of course. So, but if you're a new investor in this case, you may want to go that route and do that if you have no other options of doing it. I understand after 10 years in the business, you're not going to do that anymore.
Never
of course.
in my entire career.
I've done it before for a new investor, mostly because it's a smaller amount of money and I don't care because I know that I'm not worried about it. Now, there's risk involved, of course.
for me to do that. But in my opinion, I look at it like, it's not a big deal to me because I'm doing 10 of these a month, and I know that, I'll just sell 3 more and pay this guy 30 grand off or whatever it is, right? But all of these there's a lot of little things in place that, you want lender's title insurance. You want to be able to make sure that you have proper title insurance, proper insurance involved, because a lot of times people get the wrong type of insurance. There's a lot of little things that go along with this. So we got a question here? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, can you get money for the rehab? Because I thought that's kind of hard to do.
A lot of private money lenders will actually lend you money for the rehab. They'll give you a percentage of your all-in cost, or they'll give you, 90% of your purchase price, and then, X percentage of your rehab. And so that gap funding is what I was talking about as far as second position money, or you can bring in your own capital for that rehab as well. But most of the time, most private investors will bring in a second position loan or something along those lines to fund that rehab gap that the private money lender won't.
If you don't have anybody like that, then you're kind of...
That's where I was saying, if you're a new investor, finding other ways to cross-collateralize or be personal guaranteed or things like that, any way you can to raise that money. And if you're personally guaranteed and it's your first deal and you don't have any money, then you're not really risking a lot. Maybe you're risking your wages along the way if you really lose it all, right?
Judgments last 10 years.
Yeah. So, it could hurt you in the long run, but at the same time, you do everything you can not to lose their money. Remember, you're trading, they're lending you their money. That's their life. That is a portion of their life they worked for. So if you lose that money, you're taking away hours of their life. So anything you can, I don't care if you have to pull it out on credit cards. I don't care if you have to do anything possible to find a way to pay them back. Go sell your car, pay them back.
A simple way to do it too is if you have a great deal that makes a ton of sense and all you're missing is the rehab portion of the funds, talk to your contractor, talk to a bunch of contractors. There's probably a lot of them that would love to get in on some of those profits, and they'll put up the money. There's a lot of contractors that can do everything on terms. They don't even have to come out of their own pocket. If they've been doing it long enough, they get credit from all their suppliers and stuff. They can pay them over 90 days in some cases. So I would talk to your contractors and see if they're willing to put up the rehab piece and get part of the ownership.
Just make sure when you do that with a contractor that you have your price up front before you start doing that, because it will creep, and they're like, "Oh, I'm getting more of the profit by just making the construction cost."
We know.
Hence why we're in a giant lawsuit right now.
There you go. And is there who's new in the room that's just starting getting their flips done and stuff like that? Just starting to try to learn how to flip. Okay. So all of you guys, Jeff will lend you all the money you need right there. I'm going to throw him under the bus really quick. Actually, Dave in the back is a private lender as well. So they have some pretty good rates and terms right now as well from my experience with these guys. So that being said, let's talk about the contractors, which is, I think, the fun part, to talk about the contractors. So, Christy, how do you keep your contractors in line here? How do you just backhand them, or what do you do?
Yell at everybody. No.
Yeah, basically, right? You got your blowhorn, or your
the opposite
loudspeaker.
of that. I figure if I got to yell at somebody, I just don't want to be working with that person.
Yeah.
And that goes for anybody, realtors, anybody I work with. It's like, I don't want this conflict. Life is too short. Go find people that you actually want to work with.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for the cheapest guy. I'm looking for the guy who's not desperate, who will show up at the job site and not be wanting to get paid the moment he shows up on the job site, and just had to have a good working relationship. So it's going to do the job and basically not get us sued, and maybe I just haven't done enough deals yet, but my company that I flip under has not been sued. I mean, we do the work right. I make sure he's licensed. Yeah, there's cheaper guys out there, but are they paying their guys right? Are they getting workers' comp? Are they doing the job right? Or are they cutting corners? So, yeah, and like I said, back to BNI, this is where I met my contractor, who I've been using for about 6 years now, and he's just a really solid guy. So, you could go to BNI, you could come to a real estate investing network meeting and probably get a referral. So it's usually a referral is the best way to find a reliable contractor.
How about you guys?
Yeah, the contractors are very hard to find. We've hired and fired more contractors, than the people in this room for sure. But it's the same thing. I mean, if we show up at the job and it's day 2 and they're already doing a horrible job with the demo. It's just like a Band-Aid. Just get out, I'll pay for the day, you're done. Like, we need somebody else to come in there because, we need it done our way. It has to be done right. And especially if you're working with contractors, we always encourage working with licensed people because we don't want to carry that liability going forward. Once you sell the house, you have 10 years of liability you're carrying. So we don't want to carry that liability ourselves. We want to be able to say, actually, we didn't do anything to that shower. Our contractor over here did everything to that shower. So we just passed the buck on to them in the event of a lawsuit. My dad was in construction defect insurance, so I got to have all those great stories that he told us about chimneys collapsing and stuff. The licensed contractors are the key, in our opinion. And most of the time, they're the most knowledgeable. They know the code. They know all that stuff. They know a lot of guys. We don't actually deal directly with our contractors anymore. We have a project manager who's a licensed contractor, and he's the one that hires all the contractors out. And he's great at vetting them. So he's able to go out, and he has a huge network of people he's worked with over the years, and he puts together these great teams that are able to do the projects themselves. So we don't even deal with them anymore. We have Mike deal with them, and we just deal with Mike.
And I think that's really key, right? Is having a contractor or a construction manager in place to manage all your crews and your contractors, because they can be there every day. They can be on them. You can't. You might have jobs or different things that you're doing. Unless you don't have a full-time job, you should hire someone that's going to manage that contractor that's outside of that relationship.
So if you're brand new and you don't have the luxury of paying somebody an additional 10% on every job, because basically what we're doing is we're giving away 1% of our deal to a guy who runs 5 other teams. I grew up in the trades. My dad's surveyor, all our family friends are all tradesmen, and so I would go on jobs with these people. And you could discernibly see the difference in very specific characteristics between contractors. Rule number 1, you do not want the guy with a brand new truck. If the guy has a brand new truck, you do not want to work with that guy. I'm sure they're going to do a fantastic job, but you're just not going to be able to pay an investor rate. You're going to get charged like a homeowner. The second rule is when you meet this person, ask what other jobs they're currently working on and ask if you can go visit those jobs. So if they tell you they don't have any other jobs, that's already a red flag. Not that they're necessarily bad if they don't. They may have just finished 3 giant jobs, been working on some guy's house for 2 years or whatever the case may be, but at least have not a reference. Don't take a phone call. Go look at the job because you want to see the finished work.
See if the owner's still happy with them after living in the house for a year.
Yeah, you want to see if the owner still likes them, right? Especially if the plumbing didn't blow up on them. Yeah. If they're not driving like a crazy F450 with every rack possible, and you can visit their job, you're about a 90% chance you have a decent contractor. Then if you're new, just get 3 of those people. And if you've done that, and they still show up on the job and screw up, they probably just got out of jail, or this is very our people go in and out of jail. I'm not kidding. They probably go in and out of jail. It's a lot of tradesmen do, depending. There's the subs, not usually the guys who have a contract license. They probably had some weird family issue, and you just eat $500 and you deal with it and you learn and pick somebody else.
Question about.
Actually, I was going to say someone I was working along with, they did something interesting with their contractors. We were talking about that earlier. Is on Monday morning, they have all the general come and all the subs go, and they have a meeting right there. So someone can't say, well, the plumber did this and the electrician did that. It's all hashed out right there.
That'd be cool.
It was an interesting thing.
Yeah.
They have their project managers do that every if they have certain ones, then they go out and be like, we're all going to talk right now. If someone has a problem, it gets settled right here.
So David, if you guys didn't hear David saying you have a group meeting with basically all the subs on the job site, if you can get everybody there, that's phenomenal. Especially and if you're new, you've probably got a good chance you're going to get everybody there. So if you got from demo to finish, or demo through rough, so electrical contractor, AC contractor, plumbing contractor, and your demo guy and maybe your painter all in the same room, and then you do kitchen, other finish, you got them all at the same time. They can probably work out hours, trade phone numbers, the job will go faster. That's probably a really good idea.
What they do is just in case, we all know anybody who's ever dealt with it, the plumber and the electrician usually never get along because they're always trying to run the
Yep.
same area, and they can hash it out right there. Like,
Yep.
no one can blame the plumber for this or the electrician for that.
He cut my line to put the electrical in.
Question here.
So are you hiring general contractors that bring in all the subs, or are you actually going out and bringing in all the individual subs?
We're hiring, so Mike has a general contractor license, workers' comp, all that stuff, and then he hires other general contractors. So I mean, if you think of a deal, we make 15% cash on cash typically. We can take a 1% hit across all our deals and make 14% cash on cash by hiring a contractor who's making 10% of the contract. Now, what actually has been happening is we're making a lot more money because by having a contractor oversee another contractor, they have a score to settle. So they're on the job site trying to make themselves valuable. And now what's happened is Mike has a list of all these subs, and he's like, well, we get this floating floor for $2 a foot installed. Like, sorry, if your guy, like let's say he hires another contractor, if you don't have a sub that can do it for $2 a foot, here's the number to my sub so that your contract becomes cheaper. And so what happens is he has this book of all these subs that fit each job, and he'll pick apart somebody else's bid, and he'll fill in the subs that we have at a cheaper rate.
I think, that kind of leads to a perfect question as far as how do you protect yourself from contractors. And in that process, it can be very, very key when you're working with multiple contractors or a very big job with lots of subs and things like that. Christy, how do you deal with this? You have one contractor that you focus on and he subs it out, or how does that work?
Right now I do, but I have 3 guys that I'll pull in as I get busier. But yeah, always hire a GC, and then he subs it out. I don't like the babysitting part to it. So, and there's still babysitting parts. You'll show up and the tile's just not quite right, or they put kitchen A in with kitchen B in the same kitchen and it doesn't match. Somebody's put the wrong color in. I mean, how many, you do the same kitchen over and over again. How can you get it wrong? But you'd be surprised.
Because men are colorblind, that's why.
Yes, they're colorblind. They are. They paint purple if you didn't have, the right color on the material list. But yeah, if I hire a GC and I just manage the GC and then he does all the stuff.
How do you guys protect yourself when you're dealing with these different contractors and things like that, other than having that sub or that general contractor in place?
So Todd and I sat down with Mike now and came up with the pay plan, and it's 10, 20, 20, 20, 10. So that's how you get paid.
Okay.
10% deposit. 20, you don't get your second until the first round's complete. Lately, we've been adding what we expect to finish product list. So it's like it needs to be a doormat, right? Like it's like all these little things. The AC should be charged, and so what we're doing is it's all about setting expectations. So if we give our contractor like 30 line items that we need to see in every deal, and we say this is a part of your bid, and they sign it, because all we're really doing, like, there's nothing fancy about the way we operate. We started using an Excel spreadsheet. But for a long time, it's been a notepad page. So don't think it's fancy. We don't have some crazy system. And they sign at the bottom, and so do we. And we write the amount we gave them on the top. And Todd wires 10% to the contractor direct. Mike doesn't even take that money. He gets his money at the end when the job's done. And it's the managed expectation of a signed contract and a list of what we require a finished product to look like, sort of coupled together seems to fix the problem, because now we get a home inspection, and the home inspection calls us something weird, like dormers weren't painted and caulked on the roof, right? Like, that's really common. It's the first thing home inspectors go for is like old caulking on the roof, because it makes them look like they're valuable. We actually do our own
inspectors always have to find something. Otherwise they're not valuable, no matter what.
We actually order our own home inspection now.
Gotcha.
So we just go on Elite's page, order a home inspection. I think they're brokers. They send AAA inspections, wherever does all their stuff out. We get the home inspection back, and then we hand that to the contractor. Okay. And we say what was in your contract, what wasn't, fix everything, and we'll pay you for the things that were outside of contract. And that way, it's sort of like there's a couple checks. It's we get a list, we give them a demand of additional items, we pay them in series, we get to the end, we hand them back the inspection who may have found something they either we both missed or that they just didn't do, and then we pay them their final amount, their last 10% after the inspection work is complete.
I think it's important to understand that quality control piece, to making sure you guys get that inspection afterwards and that everything's addressed, because that's going to affect your sale on the back end. Because if they get an inspection afterwards, sometimes they may not even get one if you just got one, because if you have one, you're like, here, I've already done all this work. By the way, we do the same thing. We go through and get the inspection, and then we do side-by-side pictures showing everything done in that report, which is really, really key and stops so many headaches and liability afterwards and things like that. And, I think paying them in, chunks like that is key, and doing that last 10% holdback is even more key, because you will not get them to go back to your job to do that punch list if you pay them that last piece, unless you're constantly giving them more work. Some of the other things you want to be careful of when you're dealing with contractors, especially in large jobs, on the smaller jobs and the guys we've used over and over and over again, we don't really deal with the contracts. We just protect ourselves with the payments and make sure we have the right scope of work up front and things like that. But when you're dealing with really large jobs, a lot of times you really want a contract in place to make sure that you are on the right timeline, that there's penalties in place for them to when they don't perform, or they're over time budget and things like that, and that there's benefits in place as well when they do perform. At the same time, we did a $600,000 rehab on a 19-unit building, for example, and the contractor in place had tons of subs, and the HVAC bid was $75,000. And so, we're looking at that going, I don't want to trust my contractor to make sure he pays the AC guy, to get that money to him. I want a lien waiver from the HVAC guy, and I'm going to pay him directly. So there's crews and jobs like that I think are really important to make sure that if your subs don't get paid, they have a right to put a lien on your property, even if you gave the money to your GC and he didn't, and he just didn't happen to pay him. So that there's definitely issues with that I think you need to make sure you understand in more detail. I mean, the contractor I talked to in the beginning, I should have asked this right in the beginning, but I was like, well, how do you make sure you have enough money in the bank in order to pay for the stuff we just paid? And he goes, well, if I have money in the bank, then I'm good. That's how I track. And I'm like, you're not buying any more materials ever. I'm paying for
every contract.
And that's, I should have known up front. And he was asking me about how he gets audited financials for this giant, giant commercial job he wanted to do because he needed to get bonded. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to spend $20,000, $30,000 on an audit. And how is your financials now? And he's like, if I got money in the bank, then I'm good. And I'm like, oh man, you're killing me. So, these are the types of things you deal with, because you have to realize we already know that 95% of people are not good with money and financially, right? Because nobody teaches that stuff, let alone the tradesman that's out in the field working with their hands. It's hard to do that. Nobody teaches this stuff. And so 90% of businesses don't have their books up to date every single month and know what's happening consistently. But that's why 90% of businesses fail as well. So you have to realize as you do this business and you're trying to mitigate risk, how you can get screwed, how you can lose money in these ways.
Yeah, another thing too, we do, we pay our contractors immediately. Once we get verification the work's been complete, they get their wire. We actually wire money to our contractors and our subs, just because it's important for us to pay them quickly. I've talked to lots of different subs and contractors who, they've been on these billing cycles with their companies they were working for or whatever, or sometimes they're waiting 2 weeks to get paid for a job that they had done. And, like you said, most of the people we're dealing with are not financial wizards. So,
they need that money right then.
Yeah, they need that money.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they don't have gas money to get to the job the next day.
And they love you. If you're paying them immediately, they're like, great. Yeah. I love working with this guy. I get paid exactly when he tells me.
And they love it because, we're trying to find ways to pay them quicker. I'm like, how can we pay you quicker? Can you get the PayPal Here app, or can you get Cash.me or something like that? So when you have an invoice, just email it to me or text me and I'll just pay you on the spot. You don't even have to wait the next day. So always trying to pay them as quickly as possible.
While we're on contract, it's great information, and I think how many years of knowledge that you all have, you can kind of hone it in for the new first timer or for the person that's on your second or third day that's trying to figure out, hey, what the heck is a GC? Should I really go get a general contractor? Or you know what? I'm figuring out how to do this for as cheap as possible. Should I hire that guy at Home Depot? Because I think that's big ocean of the room.
Well, people do, and they can be successful at that too. But at the same time, if you do it too long, you're going to get bit, and that's what's going to happen. And so, in the beginning, you go with the cheapest guy because you're like, wait a minute, that guy is $100, a square foot versus $125 if you're building or whatever it is, But it will bite you. In the long run, you might get lucky on a few of them, but not only that, but you're taking a big risk by not having a GC with the proper insurance and workers' comp. So, can you guys? What's your thoughts?
Well, on my first project, I actually got in and did all the work alongside with the contractors because I didn't know a thing. I thought that the carpet went under the wall into the next room. So
awesome.
So I knew nothing, and on my first project, I had my door guy. He told me, just take the doors out because we're going to put new ones in. I didn't just take the doors out; I took the jambs out too. And he comes back, he's like, "What did you do?" And I'm like, "I took the doors out. You told me to take them out."
The tile.
Yeah. Oh man. So he was like, "Okay, so now your door cost just doubled because I have to get new jams now." Some little mistakes, plus some of the things I spent way too much money on. But I think hands-on experience is really key. If you can't do the work yourself, at least try to immerse yourself in construction in some form or fashion. But in your first project, hire contractors. Don't bother with the Home Depot guys because they're very, very high touch. You have to be there constantly because they'll do all kinds of stuff they're not supposed to be doing and charge you for it, and they do it wrong. And then you have to have somebody come back, tear out the work they did, and do it right, and you pay way more money for it.
And in order to protect yourself from the construction piece, one of your best protections is your own knowledge base. So if you can go through and as you do that job, you're pricing out materials, you're asking them, hey, how long can I just pay for my materials, as you buy them, and I'll just reimburse you, bring me my receipts, and then I'll pay you for them. I know I'm talking about a new investor that is trying to learn.
I want to bring up an important point about that.
Okay.
So our insurance person told us that if we pay for materials, we are technically hiring an employee, and so now you're liable because they could claim there's a So I'll give you an example. We have an HR person coming to our office now, and we're going over employment agreements, and she's like. She's starting to find out what it is.
She's saying that if they have to pay for their own expenses, is what you're saying.
Well, no, so
under the employee versus subcontractor.
No, I was actually referring to the liability side. If something happens later. So right now, our HR person's in, and she's like, "Who is an employee?" We're like, "Oh, we only have one employee." She's like, "Well, actually, who has it? These people have company credit cards. Oh, they're technically employees too." And then we have to go through that process, right? So where she's explaining to us what is an employee and what isn't, and we're kind of looking at that going. Oh, I remember another piece when it was actually Ivan Oberon said I was interviewing in front of a club, and he said you don't want to buy materials for a contractor or a sub because technically it's like contract for employment, and so when they get sued for a mistake, that comes back to you, and they want to know why you don't have workman's comp.
Okay, yeah. So in that case, what we do is we will go through and every job we do, we buy 100% of the materials ourselves, and it's ready for them, ready to go. But at the same time, if I'm a new investor and I'm going through and a lot of contractors will give you markups on some of the materials. So what I do to avoid that is I go through and say, okay, thanks for the receipt. I'm reimbursing you for the money right now. You gave me the receipt for all of that material. I can look at the receipt and say, how much square footage of flooring did you buy for this? I want the extra, on those types of things. I mean, it's little things like that I think you understanding what your materials costs are and also how long things take for labor. If they say, hey, I'm going to charge you X amount for labor, and you say, okay, well, how many guys do you have on that, doing that? Or how many days will that take those guys? Then you can compute the hourly rate. If they're trying to charge you $50 an hour for a general laborer to come in and put floors down, then they're jacking you, So, I mean, it's things like that. But also understand that certain contractors, if they're doing it right, are paying them, their wage, but also going through and having to cover workers' comp, general liability. So you have to have a markup on their wage. So you have to leave, 20, 30% extra on top of that for those extra costs associated with them having employees that work for them. But I think that's very key. There's like 10 or 15 different rules when you're hiring a sub versus an employee that you want to make sure that contractor is a subcontractor into those rules, not the other way around.
Wasn't it they have to have a professional license that designates them as non-employee?
So there's a ton of professional license is one indication, but they have to pay for their own expenses. Yeah. They have to go through and they have to have the risk of loss on their name. So for them, so if they mess up and quote you wrong on their labor and they lose, then that's on them. There's definitely rules, and you can look it up in California, and under the California Franchise Tax Board, you can find the rules and things like that for subs versus not. But you walking that job yourself and doing that math and breaking it down and going to Home Depot, it teaches you a ton. The first time I ever did one, I was there. I was the GC, right? I'm looking at every little thing, trying to figure out, make sure that everything's right. In different states, you have different rules and regulations. You change a toilet in California, need a freaking GC and pull a permit on the damn thing, right? In Tennessee, anything under $25,000, I don't need a GC on, which is amazing. It's different laws in different markets, so you want to look at that side. Question?
That's one of the questions I was going to ask. When you guys, if you renovate a bathroom or kitchen or HVAC, do your contractors pull permits every time on everything that they need to pull permits on?
I'll give Christy this one first.
We're on Facebook live stream, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Every single time. We would never.
Yeah. Something super basic, which is rare that I get anything super basic. And you don't get paint and carpet these days.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying if you've got a bathroom,
I'm getting a permit for that. Because look at it this way, it's like a double check almost. So your licensed contractor is supposed to be doing it right, and now the city is coming in and checking off that it's been done right. So it just is additional.
So I'm thinking in terms of the time, pulling permits could extend your time.
Yeah.
So you just need a rehab permit. So what everybody misses is you don't need a permit that has all these. You don't need a plumbing permit, an electrical permit. You just need a rehab permit. What you're doing is repairing and replacing. So a rehab permit just asks you what your general scope of work is and what the general dollar amount is, and it's one permit. And then they basically tell you when you're going to need an inspection. Oh, we're going to need a combo inspection. We get through ripping all these bathrooms, and then we're going to need maybe there's going to be a little bit of drywall, but they might let you slide on that, and they might get you all the way to the end, and then do a completion. So it's sort of, and they'll probably make you pull an individual one for a water heater, which they've been doing lately, and for HVAC, and for roof. Those are the three they really hit you with. Windows in LA County, I believe, in Orange County, in Inland Empire, we get away with murder in most cases, just because the contractors have relationships because it's smaller with a lot of the
city officials.
A lot of city officials, they show up and they're like, "Oh, hey, what's up, man? How's it going? What'd you do? I did this. All right, all looks good per usual. I've done 1,000 of your jobs. Have a nice day. Sign you off." But I think one thing that we miss is I think we're using a lot of jargon when we said GC.
Oh, yeah.
For those of you who don't know, what GC is a general contractor. A general contractor is a B licensed contractor who has the ability to hire people for a whole bunch of jobs, run an entire job. They have their own insurance. They can hire A licensed contractors underneath them. They can actually hire employees. It's a superior level license for running a job. Then you have an A license, which would be like a flooring contractor or a painting contractor, something to that effect. So we always hire a B licensed, a general contractor, and then we have licensed A contractors underneath them that run the job. So the B licensed contractor has the most liability, and the A licensed ones have direct liability for their own individual job. So if you're new, that's what you're looking for, is that sort of two-tier system. And technically, the B contractor should be checking your subs for better value, but often they're working together because they do every job. So it doesn't hurt to take your bid and then walk it over to somebody else. Be like, hey, check this out, and have them pick it apart a little bit.
Yeah, but you really do learn very quickly how much things cost when you do that walkthrough yourself to make sure that, hey, this contractor is doing me right or wrong. So, question here?
Yeah, how do you guarantee that the general contractor pays the sub so you don't end up with a mechanics lien?
Well, some of the fun ways you can do that. There are 4 different types of lien releases you can file. The first one is a conditional waiver upon completion of something. So let's say a plumber is going to do a bathtub. You can have him, before you're paying him, he's going to give you this this conditional waiver that once he's done with the bathtub that you're going to pay him. And then once you pay him, he's going to give you an unconditional release of lien once you've paid him. You can also break these up. That would be for one project that he's just doing in a one-time payment. When you break it up into draws, there's these conditional and unconditional waivers of progress payments. So there's basically four different. It's either conditional waiver of progress payment or conditional and unconditional release of final payment. So that's to prevent them from being able to file a mechanics lien. There's also most contractors don't know how to properly file a mechanics lien either. So I'd say like 90% of them are filed improperly. And, not that anybody in this room wants to screw over a contractor, but most of them don't know how to do it right anyway. So, because there's very limiting time constraints, they have to file it. And if it's not already filed with the county, they lose their right to collect. So,
and you want to know this for disputes that come up, not necessarily because you want to screw them over, but if they don't do a job right or they mess up, you don't want to pay them the whole thing. And if you don't pay them that last 10%, they'd be like, well, I'm going to file a lien and stuff. And so what do you do in that case if they're going to file a lien on you and you disagree? And, do you have to fight them in court then if they go file a lien? Or
Isn't it basically that I'm going to give this back to you, but that piece of paper that comes in the mail. So Todd has to do all the compliance, just so you know, that's what I'm asking. That piece of paper that comes in the mail, that initial notice of lien.
Yeah.
Basically, if you don't file that, you are out of compliance, right?
Yeah, like for example, if you're gonna have like a contractor pour concrete, we have a contractor that does concrete, and he's really good about this. He sends to us that he's buying, say, $3,000 worth of concrete that he's going to deliver to our job site. He has our information on there. This comes to us before he even starts the job site. It gets mailed to our office with a certified letter. And that's a very key step in the very beginning, is that we've been notified by this contractor that this work is being done on our property. And it will usually cite the general contractor on there that they're under, but they make sure they know who the end client is, which is important. So they're sending us this thing saying, we're doing this work to your property, and letting you know that they expect to be paid. With them, most of these people we know, we've worked with for a long time, so we don't do these waivers anymore because none of them do it, except for that one concrete contractor. But that's their process. They run a very tight ship, and they do it right.
It's almost like you're happy that they do it because you're working with someone that is reliable, that has their stuff straight. That's key. But if you're using them over and over again, after a while, the risk just really isn't there, So, and we've been hammering on construction because it's probably the hardest piece to really get your mind around and get down pat that you can make the most mistakes on and that can cost the most liability afterwards. But, there's a whole other process here for the sale of the property as well to make sure you can get top dollar for that property. Christy, can you talk just briefly about what happens once you're ready to list that property or ready to, make it look nice? Say the construction's done, it's clean now. Do you stage the stuff? Who do you use to go list the property and get it out there? How much do you pay them? What is the typical process that happens there?
Yep, so when a property's finished, usually if it's about $500,000 or more, I'll stage it with a professional staging company. So they go in and they put the furniture and make it actually look like a home.
How much does that typically cost?
Anywhere from $1,900 up to $2,500 for standard 1,200 1,400 square foot home. That's with one bedroom done usually, not all three of them. So I get it staged, and then I get professional pictures. For $200, you can get pictures that look awesome. And there's nothing worse than looking at a property when somebody's just taking their cell phone and pictures are sideways. Like, really, you can't market a property this way. And then I will listen to it with a realtor, so I will give it back to the agent who brought me the property, or just another agent I have if I bought it direct from the seller. But the key is just to get it on the MLS. If you get it on the MLS these days, it's it's pretty.
It's gone.
It's gone.
Right. Well,
Usually,
in the down market, what did you have to do differently? Did you have to stand outside with a sign and dance or something to get it sold? Or
I remember back in the day. I mean, the MLS is key. Once it goes on the MLS, it's all over the internet and people see it. And if you've priced it right, not super high, not super low, but right where it kind of should be, you should get, at least 2 offers. That's all you need. Then you multiple counter back, then you have leverage to negotiate the price. And you should, within that first weekend, you should be getting a couple of offers if you priced it right.
And you use a realtor involved? You list this yourself, or how do you do that?
So I always use a realtor. So I ended up getting my real estate license, and make a long story short, I don't have it hung with a broker right now because it just causes a lot of paperwork on the buy side when I'm trying to deal with a seller that maybe has just gone into an assisted living home. They don't want to have to sign 48 pages worth of disclosures, and that's what my broker was requiring. So I just gave up the license. I just buy direct to the seller as a principal, and I let the agents do their job. They list and do the agent part of it.
California disclosure laws. This is why I like dealing with Tennessee. I'm like, here's a 1-page contract. Thanks. No disclosures. Yeah. So, what about you guys? I'll get to you one second. What about you guys on the listing side? What do you guys typically do?
So we sort of have like a checklist of process we go through. Okay. That home inspection's like sort of the beginning of it. Okay. We order the home inspection, and then I'll give you guys a company that is amazing. QuickVid, QWIKVID. There is no better. We don't
spell that again.
QWIKVID.com.
QW.
Quick, but like QW.
Okay.
These guys put together the most amazing photo and video for $325 you will ever buy, including a website.
QuickVid again.
QuickVid. QWIKVID.com. QuickVid. For $325, you get ridiculously good photos and video. And you can order it online. They build a professional webpage for you. You can add your agent info. It's incredible. A lot of people.
Better than the creative. It's better than the creative real estate agent that gets down low with their camera and they get that dramatic shot of the kitchen that are just terrible. They make great quality things. They get the drone up there. They get the aerial shot and all that stuff.
I just spent $500 on a professional photographer, and the pictures look great. And then I went on my Mac and said, no shadows. It looked amazing. I was like, everything's beautiful now. It's all bright,
Yeah, totally. Like just the quality you get out of a group like this is, and I think there's other companies, but it's the only one we use.
Okay.
So we order QuickVid right away, right at the same time of the home inspection. They're usually within a couple days of each other. We don't rush to list it, so we'll make sure all our ducks in a row. So like the video comes back, the website's up. Well, it usually costs us 3 to 5 days depending on the time frame. We definitely make sure the house is professionally clean at the end. I don't mean kind of clean. I mean like awesome clean. If you can see streaks on your floor, you failed.
So you're not like the guys that flipping Vegas. They're like, you got to wait to finish this construction job. I got to get it listed tomorrow, and you're halfway done with the job.
Definitely not. And, I actually took a lot of this last year, especially. Spent a lot of time talking to Robert Fergoso. If you guys don't know who he is, he's one of the smartest people in this industry. He told us 2 things. He's like, take your time to list and take your time to do construction. He's like, give yourself a week or 2. Just pay the interest. Who cares? Get a good plan in place to do construction. You won't waste money. And in the end, give yourself time to list it so you have a good presentation. He tells us a lot of other weird stuff too, like his getting
that first week or 2 is huge for you. So
you're launching
listing points. You want to get that done. Many people as you can in that door the first couple of weeks.
Well, one thing that one of the members, this guy Drew Nader that came to our group, he's from the startup world, and he said, look, you're launching a little company. Right? You're presenting your little business model to the world. Every project is its own little startup. So you should be presenting the best light to the public. Take your time. Trust me, the $500 in interest or whatever it costs you isn't that bad. You'll get a better result. So Christy, you're always in the same area, right?
I'm all over.
Are you?
Yeah.
But you said you're all the way up to us too. But you're getting a lot of stuff from agents because you said you're going back to the original agent.
Well, probably half and half. So I get 50% from agents, but still a lot of referrals direct to seller.
How do you find when you're going to list? Because basically what we just do is we look for like the top agent by data. How do you find an agent in a territory that's either new to you, you don't have a relationship there to list it?
I probably know an agent every
You just
area.
know. Oh,
Yeah.
see, like you've been around long enough, you just know it. Yeah. So like, totally unfair advantage. And that happens to us in like High Desert. Now we have somebody list all our stuff. Like we are picking these people up. But so what we've been doing is, if you don't have MLS access, it's harder to do. However, we've been literally exporting the listings for the last year in a zip code from the MLS, and we've been sorting them by the number of sales, and we just call the top 5 agents. We interview all of them, we find the ones that are full of themselves, and we get rid of them. And then we find the ones that work for us that have like awesome marketing plans, and we interview 2, 3, 4 of them. And we pay the same every time. We pay, I don't know if I told you I did this, but I added this. That happens sometimes with us, we move quickly. We pay 2% to the listing agent because if we put in the MLS itself. We pay 2.5% to a buyer's agent. We pay a bonus, a 0.5% bonus for a full price offer from a buyer's agent in the first 14 days. And we pay a 0.5% bonus to the listing agent if they close it in the first 45 days at full price. So there's an incentive for both people to move quickly, and it sort of allows them to get close to a traditional commission if they do a good job. The one thing I want to emphasize about listing through a realtor that many people don't understand, all this stuff is syndicated. So like every single piece of information you put in the MLS and in SoCal, with the exception of the mountains and the high desert, everything is all under one MLS out in San Diego. And so when you put information in there, all these internet crawlers are grabbing those data points, and they're the thing that agents don't appreciate is that every search on the web is single elimination. Does not have this criteria, omitted from results. So when we have an agent list the property, we tell them, you need to fill out every single damn checkbox that applies in the MLS. I want the schools. I don't even care if you think that doesn't look like a family, doesn't look like a family room, it looks like a living room. Check both the boxes. When you pull up the MLS, I want that screen just full of all the stuff the property has. No false claims, but just full. Even it'll ask questions like, what's the size lot? 0 to 10,000. If you don't fill that data in, Trulia, Redfin, Zillow, they go, oh, this is an unimportant listing, and it goes down page, and you lose rank. And so we just had one in Palm Springs. There's property in Palm Springs. We had really good investors on it who were super cool about how long this thing took. We were coming up to the airport, we have to give this back. This property's beautiful. Yeah. And the agent on the file didn't fill out the MLS. It was missing a bunch of stuff, and he was bringing buyers through. But what we've been doing now is we've been putting Arlo cameras in all our properties. So Arlo, ARLO, for $500 gives you a group of 4 cameras, and they have two-way audio, which means you can hear everything your buyer is saying in the property. And the buyers were walking through, and the agents were holding open houses. And if anybody's worried about legality, open notorious filming, especially on your own property, is legal in California. I don't know what the municipal code is for it, but I have to look it up. Or civil code. But we can hear what they're saying. And so the agents who were holding an open house were literally redirecting buyers to another property.
Wow.
So I fired the guy. Excuse me. I fired the guy. I listed it myself. I have a license. I don't list properties, but for the sake of saving money, because it was getting really thin, I listed it. And we had a house in Palm Springs, and I was going out to the desert for a festival, so why not sleep in the house, right? So I was a stagecoach, and I slept in the house, and a buyer showed up, and I had just relisted the property, and he was basically ignored by the listing agent. So this is how bad of a job this agent did. Buyer paid $25,000 under the asking price, which still made us a $30,000 profit on a deal. It should have been $100,000, but it went so long. And all of it was because two failures, right? I didn't know the agent was redirecting people. I wouldn't have known that until I put the cameras up. And they didn't fill out the MLS, so you wouldn't see it ranking on the internet, and it disappeared.
Legal recourse or anything like that against that agent? Because that's like fraud, right?
I mean, technically, but why? So we're in one lawsuit right now that we hated. Yeah, we hated even filing. I don't want to sue somebody. In this business, if somebody cost you money, it was the cheapest lesson you ever learned.
Right.
you just get rid of them and never talk to them again.
Yeah, we've done the same thing. So we had a question here, and then we'll
Yeah,
wrap
you
it up.
generally want your houses to be nicer than the other houses that are listed in your area when they're done.
Kind of. Like if I could give it a number, I want my house to be 101%. So like I want my house just a hair nicer than my competition, because then I always bet it's better.
Yeah, you want the next best thing on the market that somebody's going to put an offer in on. And when you're remodeling from top to bottom, you can't help it. You're going to be the nicest thing.
Yeah. Question?
Yeah, I have a question. Regarding your flips, just maybe some bad experiences, or what would you do differently? Like, say if the property didn't sell in a month or 2 months, which one's the longest one that's took forever to sell, and what would you do differently?
You got stories, I got stories.
Well, I think we can all go down the line on this one.
How many examples do you want?
That's what I was thinking, right? Like on this Palm Springs one, we didn't smooth coat the outside. We left big cat face stucco. Everybody hit the outside. Had bad curb appeal. Beautiful inside, bad curb appeal. We only know that because of the cameras. The mistakes that were made early on, and Christy probably should, the same story Todd can too, were personal taste. You end up putting a lot of personal taste stuff that nobody else likes. Pinterest is your best friend. One of the best ways to design your property is just go to house, click house, so HOZZ.com, click homes or remodel or whatever the tab is on top, and sort by most popular. Right now you're going to find that white fake Carrera, white shaker cabinets, dark floors, if you go modern terrazzo floors, all white smooth coat walls, bright tones are like everybody's doing it. And then what you're going to see in like all these unique areas is like there's weird stuff that's popular now, like super heavy Spanish is coming back, Moroccan, and Moroccan was a thing we didn't know existed until the awesome people in Palm Springs told us how we were not Moroccan and we needed to be. There's all these. So if you want to avoid like avoid the bad experiences, I would say it's mostly in design, for reason for not selling and pricing, obviously. But just look at what's popular. Be lazy. Just look at what's the most popular thing on the web.
So was that like basically the best money you've spent getting those video cameras basically in there, so you
They're
can
in every
see
house
what
now.
people are saying? Yeah, I mean, you're seeing what everyone's saying about your property to know, well, I won't do that again. Okay, cool, I get this. And
even better, like now they just came out with this Arlo Go, which is cell phone based. So you pay your $10 a month for the cell phone inside the camera. You just screw it. You have no Wi-Fi, nothing. Just screw it up onto the wall.
It's like the drop cams have the same type of
Exactly.
A lot of the time it's just a plug and you're done.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, Dropcam. Is Dropcam Wi-Fi or is it?
Dropcam's Wi-Fi. So.
But these are like standard, literally cellular.
Oh really?
Full blown. Like,
Verizon, yeah.
it has for only Verizon sells them. It has a
What are they
cellular
called
license. Arlo Go.
Arlo Go. Okay, interesting.
And it just came out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys very much. We got to cut it off because it's about 9:15 right now, and everybody's going to go and nod off pretty quickly here. So, if you guys are interested, we're going to have another event next month at the end of the month, and then we have the FIBI Long Beach on the second Thursday of the month. And when is your guys' event the next time?
Can I pitch my
Please.
event?
Absolutely.
Now we moved the meeting from the Mission Inn in Riverside to a place called Loft 84, which is much bigger, and we have the place all to ourselves. It's the 25th of September, I believe.
It's October.
It's
the fourth Wednesday.
It's the fourth Wednesday. It's the fourth Wednesday of every month. You can find us on Meetup. We do an interview style, so no pitch still. We just do an interview. 27th. Todd has a section of September. Todd has a section called Todd's Problems, where he talks about like all the things in life that are troubling him.
All related to real estate.
All related to real estate.
I got this bunion on my foot. It's bothering me.
And if you guys listen, all the stuff we talked about, I forgot to tell you guys where to get it. So all the free resources you want, our spreadsheets we use, all the presentations I've ever done, the clippings, we put it all in one place for you. So if you just go to CRG, our company community restoration group, crg.email, there's a short registration form. We don't mail you anything. It's literally so we can send you updates to the documents. You can download every single thing. It's a getting started package. You're welcome to call us. You're welcome. I do business planning meetings for free. Todd's been going bowling. This is a new thing.
Nice.
If you want to ask questions, call the office. Please though, we put it together because took a lot of time putting this information. Read the whole thing and then call us. Because people call and they're like, oh, I opened the spreadsheet and didn't read into it. Like, go back and call me later.
Yeah.
But so we're happy to take your call. It may take a little while to get you in, but we're happy to answer questions. We don't do any paid consulting. We don't have nothing to sell. It's free.
And Christy, how can people get a hold of you?
CRG.email.
CRG.email.
It's a web address.
That's a URL.
What about you, Christy? How can they get a hold of you?
You can email me at porterholmes@gmail.
That's an awesome name.
That's an awesome name.
This is so good.
porterholmes@gmail.com. All right.
You can connect with me on Facebook too. I've got some before and after pictures under Certwell Investments. That's my the company I buy under.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you guys very much for coming. We really appreciate it. Hope you guys got some value, and I look forward to seeing you next time.